Thank you. So today we're going to look at why active listening isn't enough for us to be great listeners as leaders. And I want to start by just running very quickly through why it's important that we're great listeners. And then I'm going to take you through a way of breaking down active listening into smaller steps that you can become better and better at listening for your teams and get some of these benefits for yourself. People who listen really, really well build great, strong relationships. That can be with their team, it can be with their stakeholders, and in doing that alone, you'll unlock a lot of potential and a lot in your career. It allows you to work and to lead with both empathy and compassion, and based on what's really going on with the people that you're working with. It allows you to help people to feel understood, which unlocks team performance, and that trust that you build as you do that is fundamental to great team performance. People who listen well are able to identify potential issues sooner. They're seen by their peers as more credible, and we can back that up empirically. They have a better understanding of what's really happening around them, so they make better quality decisions, and that's fundamental to being a great leader. And having said all that, ironically, less than 25% of professionals overall have had any formal training in how to listen. We get taught how to present, we get taught how to write all through school and that kind of thing, but very seldom are we taught how to listen at our best and how to do that. And yet 90% of what we learn either formally from an educational perspective and a developmental perspective, and of what we learn in terms of what's going on in our organisations and how we make the most of it, happens through listening. So it's a really important key skill, and let's see how we can get even better at it. And I want to share with you, if I can move the slide on, there we go, apologies, something I call the listening staircase. So we start on the bottom left-hand side, and as we move up this, the quality of our listening improves, and you can see it's a lot more granular than I'm not listening or I'm actively listening. So if we start on that bottom step on the left-hand side, the ignoring, it's when you're in the same space as somebody, but you're not really listening to what's going on. And I hope that's not what's going on with you as you're listening to this webinar, but I'm very aware from my own behaviours that sometimes when we're on webinars, that's what happens. We hear the noise going on in the background, but we're not necessarily engaged with what's happening. It's not really listening. And my friends with teenagers tell me they see this behaviour the whole time. And the thing to think about, if as a leader you catch yourself listening like this, is what's the impact on the person who's speaking? How are they going to carry on interacting with you, and how's that going to impact your relationship with them? What we then have are what more traditionally you might call active listening for these next 4 steps. So the thing with active listening, where you're taught to kind of nod and to say yes and to look at the person who's talking, they're all absolutely vital and fundamental. I'm not knocking that at all, but it's not enough if you want to be a great leader, and we need to get better and better and better at how we listen. So the next step on the ladder is where we are pretending to listen. And what's happening here is we are just waiting for that pause in the conversation to say our piece. And what happens in our brains when we're listening is it triggers all sorts of thoughts and ideas. And what happens when you're listening like this is you grab hold of one of those and you hold on to it really tight until there's a little pause, maybe somebody breathes and puts a pause in the sentence, and you then say what it is you need to say or what you've been thinking of. So all the time between when you have that idea and when you speak, you probably haven't really been listening at all. You've been practicing that idea in your head. If you're talking to somebody else, again, what happens with the conversation is it quite often goes off track at that point. So by the time you get a chance to speak, particularly in a meeting, you might find yourself saying something that doesn't even feel relevant to you at that point. And that's because you've been listening at that level. If we go one step up from there, we go to what we call selective listening. And that's where you're engaging with what's being said a little bit more, you're processing it a little bit more, you keep processing it, but you're waiting for the chance to speak, but in this case, to disagree with what's being said and to put your point of view in. So the intent behind it has moved from just waiting to speak to waiting to tell somebody why you're right and they're not necessarily. In a lot of the projects I work on, particularly in the early stages of the team formation, I see a lot of listening happening at that level. And if people are dealing with a lot of change, as they are when we're recording this webinar, a lot of selective listening happens. We listen for the things that we want to hear, and we will agree with those, and we listen for the things we don't like, and we'll disagree with those. So again, in the project and the stakeholder areas, if you're doing that, it can be quite disheartening for the person you're speaking to, because they're not necessarily feeling you've understood what their point is, because you've just waited for that pause and then you've shot them down and told them where they're wrong. Again, better than the one before, but not as good as the next one. So the reason I put some people on the attentive listening step is because as a leader, when you're working with other people, this is where I think you need to aim to be in as many conversations as you can be. What you're doing when you're listening attentively is you're doing all those active listening things, but what you're also doing is you're trying to make sure you've really understood the other person's perspective before you offer your own opinion. So if you're listening attentively, you'll be able to ask questions that help them develop their thinking. You'll be able to ask questions that clarify what they're saying. Quite often we find, even within an organization, that what we're saying, we might say the same words, but we'll understand different things by them. So by listening at this level and really digging into what they're saying and making sure you've understood them, we can make sure that we don't get divided by that common language. We should be able to demonstrate in how we summarize what they're saying that we've understood, and we should be able to demonstrate it in how we then take the conversation on to the next level. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they've said, but it means that when you come to position what you need to say, you're able to do it in a way that they feel understood, and they will understand quickly and easily because you're understanding each other fundamentally at that point. When you're working with your team, when you listen attentively, they're going to feel valued, they're going to feel they can trust you, and they're going to feel that what they are doing and contributing is important. And that's fundamental to driving their performance and the performance of the team as a whole. So right on the top step is empathetic listening. And this is where you are able to let go of all the connections that are being made in your brain for a little while when somebody says something. For example, normally if somebody starts talking about, to give you a random example, their favorite food, you'll start thinking about what food you really enjoy, and your brain, or part of your brain, will go and think about that rather than what the other person is saying. By the time you get to empathetic listening, what you're trying to do is listen entirely from that person's frame of reference. You're able to let go of your own associations and make sure that you are listening in their world effectively. It's hard to do. It takes an awful lot of practice, and it takes quite a lot of energy. And so by the time you're up listening at that level, you're going to be very active in your listening. As you can see, just calling it active listening.
Hi there, I hope you enjoyed that last clip. My name is Michael Maludis, and if you'd like to watch the full 60 minutes of that last webcast, while also gaining complete unlimited access to our entire library of IT learning, simply visit our subscribe page at greatpro.org/subscribe. Unlimited annual access is $199 per year, but if you use the coupon code LEARN2EARN, you can drop that membership fee to just $149. That's less than $13 per month for unlimited access to over 1,000 hours of on-demand career development, covering the entire spectrum of IT management best practices, including business analysis and requirements, software development, quality and testing, risk management, process improvement, project management, and even digital transformation. But your membership doesn't just give you unlimited access to our vast learning library. You also get free access to our mobile app, as well as direct access to our network of over 300 of the world's leading IT consultants, all of whom are dedicated to putting practical knowledge at your fingertips so that you can learn more and earn more. I hope you will join me in becoming a member of the Great IT Professional and advancing your career with us. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button above so that you get notified whenever we publish new free webcasts each week of the year. Thank you for your time and best wishes for your continued success.